Ersatzica, Wolf Princess. Chapter 3. The Boots of Pantronome. The four wolf siblings entered their bedroom. "So, what do we tell Mother?" Ryonen asked Lemele as he hung his utility belt on a hook on his bed. "She's not coming today, don't worry." Lemele took her brush and dusted herself off outside the doorway. "But what about next time we see her? Surely she's going to ask." "Fine, we'll just tell her Ersatzica got kidnapped by evil cats and that we saved her." "But I didn't get kidnapped." Ersatzica climbed into her top bunk above Mudrish's. "They surrounded you. Cats and wolves are both mammals," Lemele said. "Well, I hope the eyepiece was worth it," Ryonen remarked. "It will be, don't worry. Just wait and see." Lemele smugly rubbed the spyglass. She hung the brush up on the wall and stepped into the room, tiptoeing to her bed, bunked under Ryonen's. "How are you feeling, Ursi?" Mudrish reached up and poked the bottom of Ursi's top bunk. "Ow." Ursi shifted, peeking over the edge at Mudrish. "I'm fine. A little tired, a little wet, but otherwise, fine." "That's good. Hey, do you want to see something cool?" "Sure." Ursi climbed down and sat on Mudrish's lower bunk. "What?" Mudrish sat up cross-legged on her bed. "These!" She grinned from ear to ear, her jaw wide open. "I got them off the cat we killed when we rescued you today." Two silver circular bands gleamed in the dim torchlight. A blue streak flashed over them. "Ooh, shiny! What are they?" "I don't know. I've tried throwing them, biting them, and wearing them as a crown." "They're cuffs," Ryonen butted in. "They're meant to be worn on your wrists." "Really?" Mudrish put one on, and it slid freely on her arm, then slid off onto the bed. "But they're too big to be cuffs." "You just have small wrists," Ryonen shrugged. "At least compared to whoever they were made for." "Well, that sucks," Mudrish sighed. "I can't wear them." "Hold on, I have got the thing." Ursi reached up to her bed and pulled out a roll of tape from under her pillow. "You keep tape under your pillow?" "Sure, never know when you might need some." Ursi taped the cuffs to Mudrish's furry arms. "How's that?" Mudrish grimaced. "It's uncomfy, but does it stay?" Mudrish flung her arms around. "It works!" "So, what do they do?" "I'm not sure," Mudrish said. After a few minutes of testing, Mudrish discovered that they grant super strength. "Watch this! I can make the room bigger!" Mudrish punched a hole in the wall. "Stop!" Lemele shouted. "You're getting dust everywhere." Mudrish It's just a little. "Besides," Lemele covered her mouth with her furry arm, "the other side of that wall is the rest of the barracks. Do you really want to share a bedroom with 30 other wolves?" "Yes?" "No. No, you don't." "Are you sure that it leads to the other barracks?" Ersatzica asked. "Muddy punched straight through and it's dark in there." "Yes, I'm sure, Ersatzica. But it's dark in there like pitch black dark." "They probably just went to bed already." No, she's right." Ryanen's ears twitched. "I think they're still awake, playing cards, in fact." Ryonen grabbed the lantern and swung it towards the hole. Not much could be seen, just some cobwebs and puddles, a critter skittering about. "It's some kind of room?" Ryonen stated. "It smells really bad." Mudrish covered her nose. "Why don't you two share the bunk tonight? We can get Nefeli to fix it tomorrow." "Or," Mudrish shoved Ryonen out of her bed with ease, "I'll just move it." Mudrish picked up the bunk bed and dropped it against the opposite wall with a loud thud. "Done." "Okay, but we still need the wall fixed tomorrow." Sure. "It's time for bed." "Can we just do prayer and go to sleep?" "All right, time for prayer. Then lights out. Let's bow our heads." Ryonen led them in prayer. "Alpha, wolf god of the loyal moon, thank you for keeping Ersatzica safe today. Please help guide us in our task tomorrow, and help Mudrish and Ersatzica not get distracted when fixing the wall." "Hey!" Mudrish protested. "Shh! Prayer!" Lemele shushed her. "And please help us respect prayer time. May we always be," everyone joined in for, "in your guiding moonlight." "All right, everyone ready?" Ryonen held the lantern up, checking to make sure each of his sisters was in bed. "Good night." "Good night." He blew out the candle and climbed into bed himself. The next day, Lemele and Ryonen went to do their jobs, leaving Mudrish and Ersatzica to fetch Nefeli. What if we instead, Mudge said. Muddy? No, Ursa refuted. But what if we find something good in there? But what if we find something horrible in there? It smells like something died in there. Let's find out. No! Come on, Ursi. Can you speed me up? Oh, okay. Ersatzica beat on the drums, pounding more rapidly as Rodriguez synced herself up. Muddy punched the wall and again, in rhythm with the drums. Bum, bum, bum. Pound, pound, pound. Muddy punched the last brick with extra fervor, sending it flying into the room. Ursi handed her the lantern as they both entered. Ersatzica taped her nose and Mudge's nose shut. Dust and dirt rolled out of the chamber into their bedroom, depositing mostly onto Mudge's bed. Ersatzica and Mudge coughed as they breathed it in. It was as if they had discovered a long-lost tomb. Inside, the floor was littered in rat feces and dotted with rat corpses. Cobwebs decorated every corner. A puddle or two reflected the lantern light. Ursi gasped. In one corner, a cot was rusting away. On top of it laid a blood-stained skeleton. Ursi, look! I see it. She approached the cot. What poor soul had lost their life here, had been sealed up, and why? How awful it must have been to lay here and be forgotten about. The skull had a muzzle that was too short to be a wolf's. This must have been a cat. The skeleton was devoid of any clothing, except for the feet. Over the feet were a pair of boots. They were hard to see in the dim light, but they were red and gold-plated. Intricate mechanics filled up the internals near the heels. They were in dire need of repair. A blue streak flashed over the boots. Don't worry, she whispered to the blue streak in the boots. Whoever you were, I'm here now, and I'll take good care of you. Are you talking to the skeleton? Muddy, go fetch Nefeli. All right. Ersatzica turned back to the skeleton and the boots. The boots had 2 latches each. She held the boots in place as she unlatched them, one by one. The mouth of the boots opened up, and she gently slid the boots off. They were covered in soot, dust, and cobwebs. She brought them into the bedroom, dusting them off by hand, then fetched Lemonlade's brush from the wall to get in the crevices. Despite that, they were still dirty and quite a bit rusty. Don't worry, I got you. She hid them under Muddy's bunk. When Nefeli arrived with Madra, she was quite disgusted. You pups really outdid yourselves this time, huh? The dear girl walked in, rubbing her hoof hands together. Might as well punch down the whole building while you're at it. Can you fix it? You didn't even try to rebuild it yourself. Where are all the bricks at? Do you expect me to move them myself? Well, that's your job, right? Madrish contested, holding her nose. Madrish, you did this. You help. Nefeli pointed to all the bricks. Move them. Okay, I'm doing it. Don't have to be so mean. And you don't have to be so careless. Madrish piled the bricks up near the hole. Nefeli rolled her eyes. That's not neat enough, but... She flapped her hoof hands. I guess it's good enough for me to work my magic. Madrish bounced up and down. This is my favorite part. Nefeli placed her hoof hands over the bricks, middle finger separated. The hoof on the end of her middle finger grew rapidly. The bricks morphed and stretched, growing up from the floor to fill in the hole in the wall. The result looked like someone stretched out a white blob of goo and let it dry. Ugly, but functional. Nefeli tapped the wall with her middle hoof fingers, breaking off the excess hoof. She handed both hoof clippings to Madris. Keep these safe. Remember to get this fixed properly. Madris wagged her tail as she accepted the hoof clippings. Thank you, Nefi. It's Nefeli. And don't do this again. Please. She left. Madris handed Ersatzica the hoof clippings. She moved the bed back to where it had been. Then she carried the boots to Ursi's workshop. So, what do you think these boots do? Madris said. Well, before we test, I need to clean them up first. I don't even know if we can put them on to find out. What do you mean? Well, for one, they might be too rusty to slip into. There's also size. You have to be sure you have a matching shoe size. And the big one, they're cat boots. Of course they are. You don't see wolves going around wearing boots. But that means we wolves might not be able to use them. Well, you can change that, can't you? Make the cat boots into wolf boots? Well, no, I can't. Unless I adjust the distance between them. And I also change the size of the sole. And yeah, actually, I might be able to. Then do it. I want to test them out, Madris drooled. Hold on, Muddy. It's going to take a while. They probably won't be ready today. Okay, Muddy pushed open the door to Ursi's workshop, then set the boots down on her desk. See you in a Muddy. It'll be longer than a Muddy. Okay, then see you in an Ursi. Bye, Muddy. The boots had been sitting in a cool, dry place for a very, very long time. They were covered in and filled with dust. Ursi gently tapped them in various directions to get the dust out. She wiped down every surface she could, making sure to keep her nose strapped shut. Still, she sneezed a few times, necessitating opening the window. Finally, she was able to see what she was dealing with. Red metal imperial boots with gold plating. It had patches where the paint had been chewed down. It was very mechanical for a pair of boots. A spring from the heel to the sole, gears in the middle, and a sliding mechanism that separated the rest of the boot from the ground. It was very stubborn and moving, making it difficult to tell what the mechanism was for, but that wasn't anything a little old oil couldn't fix. After good oiling, scrubbing, and polishing, the boot sparkled like new. Even the missing paint splotches looked fantastic, gave it character. A blue streak flashed across the boots for but a moment. Happy now? You're looking so much better! Ersatzica gave the boots a few wolf kisses, polishing the boots with the resulting saliva afterwards. The boots were very enticing. The best part of refurbishing an heirloom was always getting to try it out, to see what it could do. Even the disappointing effects were interesting. But without being able to fit into them, there didn't seem to be a way to test them out. Knock, knock. Come in, Ersatzica said, not taking her attention from the boots. It break again. Ersatzica turned around. It was Tremail, the town chef. He stood just outside the workshop. His large frame almost matched the door opening. He held his hand out, dangling a taxidermied wolf foot from a string. It was covered in ice crystals. Oh, no problem. I can fix that for you. Tremail dropped the foot as he reached out for it. See you tomorrow. Ersatzica barely caught it. Oh, I'll have it fixed here in a few minutes. Tomorrow. I go now. He walked away. Ersatzica put the foot on a shelf. Then she turned back to the boots. No use in fixing it soon if it won't be needed until tomorrow. The boots called to her. She embraced them in both her arms. The boots felt warm and welcoming, as if they were hugging her back. She had felt connections like this to other heirlooms, but none as strongly as this one. She placed the boots on the ground and scooted her stool to be right next to them. She tried to slip a wolf foot in, but it wouldn't fit, even with the latches swung all the way open. By Alpha, I wish I could try you on, to see what you are, to learn more about you. Just then, something happened. It was as if Alpha himself had granted her a wish from atop his perch on the moon. The feeling started in her toes. It was tingling, a slight numbness, like her fur was being pulled. Then the tips of her toes cracked and flipped upwards, disappearing into her foot. The white fur of her wolf socks ceded way to an orange, stripy fur. But more importantly, they were now smaller. Ersatzica clapped in excitement, giddy about a wish coming true. How did it happen, and why? That wasn't important. She dipped her toes into the boots, which hugged her feet, welcoming them inside. The orange fur crept up her foot, her ankle, and her calves, letting her fit snugly into the boots. Without clasping the boots, she lifted them up one by one to see how heavy they were. Despite being made of metal, they felt light enough to move about easily. She walked around her workshop a little, stomping about, clanging the metal boots on the stone floor. Then she returned to her stool. Reaching down, she clasped the boots shut. The world around her demanded her attention. The door? It creaked? Even when shut and stationary? The wind blew through its cracks, around the workshop, and out the window, pushing the paint ever so slightly to make occasional scraping noises, and jittering the jars ever so slightly. The whippoorwills outside were singing their nightly songs from their nests all the way down by the river. And the townsfolk, the walls usually muffled their voices into unintelligible murmurs, but now they were unmistakable whispers. Sure, she was turning into a cat, bit by bit, but only her feet had turned so far. Nothing to be alarmed about, right? Is this what it's like to be Ryonin all the time? She wondered. She said it out loud, but this time she didn't hear her own voice. She got up and stomped around the workshop. No noise. She took her screwdriver and tapped on the counter. No noise. She picked up the frozen wolf foot and smashed it with a hammer. No noise. She picked up an ice shard and threw it at the door. It made a small pip when it hit and a small pat when it fell to the floor. She sat down and unlatched the boots. Immediately the world fell silent, and her breathing spoke up again. You give super hearing and silent stepping? That's wonderful. Ersatzica slipped the boots off. You have such an amazing effect. Whoever gets you is going to really enjoy... The orange fur crept up her thighs. It was almost to her waist. Oh, and you also turn wolves into cats. She brushed the transition line with her paw as if she was pulling a skirt down. You have more effects than most. You really are quite special, she whimpered. The orange fur didn't stop advancing. But you can stop now. I took you off. That means you have to stop affecting me. Ersatzica jumped off her stool and walked away from the boots. The orange fur kept advancing. This isn't right. This isn't right, she insisted. The boots gave off warm, positive vibes. They offered her a consoling, welcoming hug. No. Ersatzica opened her cupboards. This can't be happening. She pulled out a lock that was rusted shut and quickly strapped it to her waist. This ends now. A blue shimmer crossed the lock. It seemed to bolt shut tighter than it already was. The strap around Ersatzica's waist tightened like thorny vines. Still, the orange fur advanced from her legs to her waist, crossing under the strap into her belly and over her scar. In fact, it sped up, reaching her tail and quickly turning it from black to orange and topping it off with a red tuft. She grabbed her tail in shock. It was a cat's tail. I didn't need this. I didn't want this. I just wanted to fit into the boots. Her eyes widened. Of course! You don't put Ordained's lock on the victim of the heirloom. You put it on the heirloom itself. That'll stop its effects. She unstrapped herself and strapped the boots together. The boots protested as she strapped them to the lock, and it broke her heart to do so, but she couldn't be a cat. She just couldn't. Usually transformation heirlooms reversed her transformation when taken off or removed, but if this one wasn't going to do that, she had to take every measure she could to protect herself, even if that meant making an heirloom unhappy. Remorsefully, the boots accepted the lock's effects. The blue shimmer on the boots dimmed, but the transformation didn't slow. In fact, it got more painful. The skin near the base of her tail peeled off, dangling on her back as the transformation continued. I'm sorry, Ersatzica cried. She unstrapped the lock from the boots, letting the lock slip off her desk and cling onto the floor. The blue shimmer returned to the boots. Please stop, please, just stop. Oh! She turned her muzzle up to cry for help, but stopped herself. What if she was a cat when help came? How would the others respond? There's no way to know. If they thought she was a cat, they might kill her on the spot. Best to wait it out and figure it out from there. She put the boots on and lashed them up. Now she could let out all the howls of pain she wanted without attracting unwanted attention. But it was painful. The skin peeling moved up her back, tormenting her sensitive nerves and pulling at her new orange fur. It wasn't even in a place she could lick easily. She howled silently. The orange fur advanced down her arms, slightly changing their proportions and flicking her fingertips back into her fluffy hand paws. She drove her fists into her legs to try and quell the pain in her neck, but instead found a new pain. Several sharp knives stabbing her thighs. They were attached to her fingertips. She pulled her hands back, whimpering. Her old wolf skin hung from the back of her head as the hairs were pulled out one by one as it peeled itself off her scalp. Then, as if taking off a mask, her face peeled off, starting at her forehead, reaching down around her eye sockets and down her nose. Her muzzle snapped back into her face, leaving her old skin feeling like a wet rag on her nose. Her new jaw was full of teeth even sharper than before. Finally, with her cheeks peeling off in one last painful burst, she was free of her old wolf skin. The old wolf skin hung limply on top of her head. She shrieked in disgust as she violently shook to get it off, but it was as if her muscles didn't know how. She just awkwardly shook her head back and forth instead. Finally, she gingerly picked up the skin by the nose and flipped it over her head, jumping to the other side of the room as it landed. Her heart beat rapidly as she assessed her new condition. Using a mirror, she found that her new face was much smaller and oranger with a white muzzle. Her green eyes glowed even in the night's darkness. Red hair flowed from her head to her shoulders, where her orange-striped arms attached. She had furry white gloves and a strange arrangement of knuckles. With no claws? Ah, there were the claws, just hidden. The rest of her body was all orange. Surely there's such a thing as an orange wolf, right? Just because she's smaller than before, orange, and has feet that can fit into a cat's boots, that doesn't mean she's a cat, right? The cat boots around her feet hugged her, comforted her, welcomed her to cathood. Ersatzica shook her head. No, this can't be happening. It didn't work. The treacherous lock didn't work. It was supposed to stop the heirloom from working, but it didn't. And these boots, how did they have so many effects? That's not how heirlooms are supposed to work. Ersatzica slumped onto her stool, buried her face in her hands, and cried. Ersatzica! Madras yelled from across the town. Ersatzica looked out the window. It was dark, and that meant curfew and bedtime. Her eyes widened and her ears flipped back. She paced around her workshop. How is she going to go to the barracks like this? As a cat? But how can she not go? If she stays, the first place they'll look for her is her workshop, and when they find her and see that she's a cat, they won't find her. She'll leave. But how? Her workshop is in the middle of a town. How could she possibly get out with anyone? Ersatzica! Madras opened the workshop door.